y'all. I don't want to waste any time. We've got a guest that I'm very excited to talk to tonight about their research, so we're just going to bring it over to the main screen right now. I'm joined here tonight by Dr. Stephen Kajiura. Am I saying that right? I was so insecure about how I misspelled it before. I want to make sure I'm not messing it up.
No, you got it. That's great.
All right, sweet. So, how's it going? Thank you so much for making the time to join us here tonight. I'm really excited to talk about your research into shark bycatch mitigation.
Yeah.
This is something that for conservationists, it's a big ticket item. So many sharks, like in the what is it, tens of millions caught by
Yeah. Yeah.
commercial fishing every year.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
well, I guess I'm jumping ahead of myself here. Would you like to introduce yourself to the chat, please?
Sure. I'm Stephen Kajiura. I'm a professor at Florida Atlantic University in the Department of Biological Sciences, and I've been there for 20 plus years now. My work deals primarily with the biology of sharks and their relatives, and the stingrays and the skates, things like that. And my lab has sort of had two major areas of interest. One is in the sensory biology of sharks and their relatives, how they sense the world with their electroreceptors or their vision or their smell, various senses, hearing. And that's been the sensory physiology aspect of the lab. But we've also had a major field component where we're out there on the water doing a lot of telemetry work. We're out there catching the animals, instrumenting them with satellite transmitters or acoustic tags to follow their movements and see where they're going, what they're doing. And so those two sorts of major areas sort of come together in this project that we've been doing recently. This question of how can we help shark conservation, but also help the fishermen at the same time. And that brings us to the project that we're working on right now, this uh, bycatch mitigation project. Um, I don't know. Do you want me to go more into that, or do you have something you want to talk about first?
Well, we could show that trailer for Shark Fest real quick. Folks in here are big fans of Shark Week and Nat Geo Shark Fest. They've kind of got their different values. Like Shark Week is there for like the production value and shock and awe stuff. But I personally am a big fan of what they've been doing with Nat Geo Shark Fest. Just because it's so much more educational and informational. In fact, I've been going to. They do that Shark Con every year in Tampa.
Hmm.
I've really been enjoying that. But some of you may have seen Dr. Kajura on Shark Fest. And I'll kind of duck out of the way here real quick so we can see a trailer of something you may have seen him in previously. Let the trailer do the talking here. I'm guessing this is around New Smyrna.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it worked. I did. That ended up being a great
Okay.
episode. I've slept since then, so I don't remember the exact description of the cause, but that's something we've actually talked about on the stream a few times. Was kind of how like New Smyrna happens to be great for surfing, but also very
Hmm.
attractive for the prey that the sharks are drawn to.
Hmm.
So as they come through that area, and I don't know why I'm explaining it like you don't already know all this stuff. You could probably do a way better job of breaking it down than me if you'd like to.
Well, what you're right on all of this. You've got this population of sharks that's there all the time, but you also have these seasonal influxes of sharks as these, like the black tips, for example, they're migrating north
Like
along the
they are
beach.
right
And
now, yeah.
right now, this is the time. And it's a, I guess, a great opportunity for accidents to happen, just because you have so many sharks. They're hugging the coastline, they're swimming north, and because these black tips are in such shallow water, that's where the people are. They're right against the beach, and so there's a jetty there that makes it really nice to create some good waves, and so there's lots of perpetual wave action to keep the surfers in the water. There's an inlet right there, so you've got this freshwater outflow, and it makes it a high productivity area for lots of little
Right.
bait fish. And so lots of little bait fish and sharks and people in the water, it's a recipe for disaster. Someone's going to get bitten.
And then we've got
Something's
so
going
many
to
more people
happen.
in the water just because the weather's perfect that time of year. The tourists
Mhm.
are coming. It's kind of like a perfect storm.
Yeah, yeah. And
So not to
the water's not even that clear is part of the problem. And so, I'm looking on your screen behind you. If it were that beautiful and clean, you'd have fewer problems.
Do you want
But
to
if
take a
it's
guess where
all
I
mud,
shot this? This was actually just like 5 minutes of my phone filming on a beach for a backdrop from a recent dive trip.
oh, Bahamas maybe?
That's Bimini. Yeah.
It is Bimini.
You got it. So I didn't want to detract too much
Yeah.
from the topic on that. I just want to give people like a frame of reference where they may have seen you before. Um, but so this research into shark bycatch mitigation, how did this come up in the first place?
So sorry.
Bless you.
This comes back to my work on sensory biology of sharks and their relatives.
Okay.
So, my work dealt a lot with how shark electroreceptors work, how sharks detect electric fields in the environment. And what this does is it gives us a channel. It gives us a mechanism to talk to the sharks without the other fish being able to detect the signal. So if you set up an electric field, the sharks can detect it, other fishes can't. And so this was a way to
If I could
keep the
interject
shark.
really quick 1 second. So most of the target species of fish don't have electroreception, right? But some fish
Right.
do, right? It's not just like a solely elasmobranch thing, right?
Right. But the target species that these fishermen are after, tunas and swordfish
They
and
don't.
those sorts of things, they don't have it.
It's
There's a
perfect.
few other fish that have it, like some catfishes and uh, some
I didn't know catfishes have that.
freshwater
That's interesting.
electric fishes and stuff, but no one's going to encounter those.
Yeah.
Um, but if you have a shark and a tuna, for example, right? They're out there in the open pelagic environment. They're feeding on the same things. And so how do you keep one off and not the other? They're attracted to the same bait. They would naturally feed on the same things. Well, this is where the sensory physiology component came in. And we said we can set up an electric field that'll scare the sharks away because they can detect it, but the other target species can't detect it, so they'd still be attracted and still bite at it. So that was the impetus for starting this project in the first place, was trying to capitalize on our experience with sensory physiology and use it as a mechanism to um, you know keep the sharks off the line
Yeah.
and help the fishermen.
In a win-win, to help conservation,
Yeah.
help the fishermen, and of course, when you have the money motivator there, it makes it easier to help justify conservation. Just same
Mhm.
situation like in Bahamas, where ecotourism is extremely lucrative. Great, let's make it a shark sanctuary.
Yeah.
That's great. So was this just like a situation where you're going, okay, here's data that we have and knowledge that we have, how can we use this to do something good? Or was there like a moment when you went, I bet we could do something that, like you said, you made
Right.
this connection where you could create a deterrent that the sharks
Yeah.
wouldn't like, but the fish wouldn't be affected by.
So other people had done work even before this using different types of repellents to keep sharks away. But the other, other mechanisms, other ways of doing it, they had limitations.
Right.
And so recognizing that, yeah, the concept is good, using electric stimulus to keep the sharks away because the other fishes can't detect it. it's a good idea, but there's got to be a better way of actually executing that. And that's where we came up with this rather uh, novel mechanism for doing it. And basically, it goes back to your high school chemistry. So, think way back. Um, they told you it was going to be useful one of these days. Guess what? It actually was. Um, and so that's what we applied, and we came up with an electrochemical solution to allow us to uh,
We'll see if
come up with
my
this deterrent.
education did me any justice. Is this kind of the similar concept to like an electrolyte battery?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly what it is. And so there's different metals have very different galvanic potentials, they're called. And so I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you take like a stainless steel um, piece of metal, but you put like a regular washer on there
Yeah.
and you hold it on with a steel screw, all right, you have different metals in contact with each other, and what that's going to do is it's going to exacerbate the corrosion process. You're basically creating a battery, two dissimilar metals in contact in a moist environment, like on a boat or in, underwater or moist air. You're going to cause corrosion. You're going to cause a little electric current between them, and that's called the galvanic cell, right? It's simply combining different metals together that have different galvanic potentials to create this voltage. And so knowing that, what we did is we found the things that were as far apart as possible on the galvanic in terms of galvanic potentials. And so at the one extreme, you have carbon, just plain elemental carbon. And if it's in a uniform uh, uh, configuration, it's called graphite. It's pencil lead,
Right.
is all it is, effectively. Right. And at the other extreme, you've got, well, magnesium, which is way too expensive. So we're not going to deal with magnesium. But the next one down is zinc. And zinc is cheap.
We use it
Zinc
all the
is
time on
readily
boat
available.
engines and things.
It's a dietary supplement.
Yeah.
You can eat it. Uh, and fishermen know what they are. I mean, if you have a boat, you've got a zinc on your motor or on the bottom of your boat, right? They're sacrificial anodes that you have to replace every year because they are designed to corrode and wear out. And so by combining carbon, graphite, and zinc, that are as far apart as possible, when you put those two things together, you get the biggest voltage that's produced
Ah, okay.
around this target,
So we're looking for the
this
strongest
device.
potential reaction to be a deterrent. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That may have just answered what one of my questions would have been. There's a video that went viral. It had been mentioned on, I think, possibly both Shark Week and Shark Fest, but it was a guy on Jupiter was driving his boat along, and a bull
Yeah.
shark. Already know the video I'm talking about, don't you?
I
A bull
I, w
shark
I
went
was there
right
that
between
day.
both of his motors. Huh?
Yep.
Yeah, and
I
it
was
was
at the
wild.
dock when they came back and I got interviewed,
Really.
coincidentally. Yeah.
So there was a scientist that was interviewed in the YouTube video we watched on that here on the channel. It was you. I don't actually know who the guy was.
Yeah.
But I think it was that shark fisherman Blacktip H's account that we were watching it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it was crazy. So there, what do you think about that? That you think that at a weaker scale like that,
So,
that potentially
mhm,
the
mhm.
that galvanic reaction could have been attracting the shark?
Yeah, so in that case, though, it was strange because that shark hit that motor multiple times. It
Yeah.
was not just an investigation, what is that, and take a little bite and then swim away. It nailed it and it cracked the housing. It did a lot of damage. So there was a lot more going on than just the attraction to the weak electric field. I don't know what
Well, it
what they
seemed like
did
it
to
was like
annoy
he was
that
reeling in
shark.
a cobia or something,
Yeah,
and that shark was intrigued and following that in, so it was already kind of
it
on the
was,
trail,
yeah,
and then when it got, I
wrapped
guess, in
up in it.
range of that, it
Hmm.
decided to hit the motors.
Hmm.
Thank God he
Hmm.
had cut him off. That was crazy.
But normally you would get that, and we've seen this before. I've had a black tip bite my motor, and I've raised the motor out of the water, and the shark is still holding onto it.
Really? I've seen
Um,
videos of that. You've had that happen?
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. We had that happen. And
Did they let
I
go, or
had to
did you
get
have
like
to take them off, or?
a boat hook and kind of pry the jaw open to just say, just fall off. Come on, we don't need you here.
This was a black tip you said? That's kind of funny because like
Yeah,
I was just talking about earlier about how black tips are like so timid that I've just kind of accepted I'll never be able to film one. Because the
yeah,
moment you get anywhere near them, they just bug
yeah.
out. I get it on with the drone all the time, but I just don't think I'll
Mhm.
ever see one on the 360 because they're just so hard to film. So it's crazy they would just
Yeah.
come in and latch onto your boat like that.
Yeah, it was unique. But yeah, you're right. They're really skittish. They do not like people at all. When we film them, what we do is typically use a block cam. A block cam is just a GoPro on a concrete block, and you just drop it in the water and drive away and leave it. And then whoever swims by, well, that's the footage you get.
Hmm.
But if you try and jump in with them, forget it. They're out of there.
Yeah, so you'd almost have to kind of do like a baited remote camera
Yeah.
situation.
Mhm.
I've tried to cobble one together on the off chance I ever get a chance to use it. I took I bought a grate for like a shelf in your oven, and just
Yeah.
basically zip tied weights to the corners, and I put a fishbowl in there to stick the 360 camera into, and cut the bottom of the fishbowl out. So we'll see if I ever get a chance to use that rickety thing. Uh, but so and how much voltage are we talking about in comparison to like just your sacrificial zincs on a motor being in
Yeah.
the water versus this galvanic reaction you get from the device you guys designed with the zinc and graphite?
Yeah. It's still a tiny voltage. You won't feel it or anything if you
Right.
were to stick your hand underwater. It's still in the range of uh, millivolts. But remember that these sharks are capable of detecting electric fields at very small, tiny, nanovolt levels. So, 100,000 times less than that. And so it's a sufficient stimulus for the animals at that level compared to a typical sort of prey fish, the electric field of like a little bait fish or a shrimp or a crab or something.
Hmm.
Those sort of electric fields are way down there, even lower, and that's what the sharks are accustomed to, right? They're
Ah.
not accustomed to something that's 1,000 times or 100,000 times stronger. It's like I don't know, it's like a candle. You've got this nice romantic candle, and it's attractive, and your mate lights the candle, she comes toward it, but then you turn on a giant, landing light from a, 747, you blow her eyes out. It's the same sort of thing. You've got a little electric field, they're attracted to that, and a huge electric field that's gonna scare them and
So it's not
start running
like
away.
we don't have to produce something that's like a taser underwater. We just have to beat the frequencies of all the potential that ones that they're used to in a prey item.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
that makes a lot
they
of
they've
sense.
never encountered something like that before. It's novel to them.
So they're gonna
And
go, "What is
so
that?" Like
they're
right
going,
off
what
the
is
bat.
that? And
Yeah,
be
that makes
startled
a
more
lot
than
of
anything.
sense.
Yeah.
So we have some pictures here that were posted on the FAU website. I'll see if I can just. I think the better way to do this would just dock this over here, and I'll just shrink myself down itty bitty here.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think it was this page here that showed like one of the early prototypes of the device, so people have an idea of
Mhm.
what we're dealing with here. And so it looks like this was designed. These are like basically just clamps or zip ties or something so you could slide this
Yeah.
right onto the hook there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just
And
zip
I'm
tied onto the hook there.
if I
And
had to
you've got
guess, I'm
two
gonna
things
say
there.
this
The
dark
the
slab
dark,
is the graphite.
the graphite. Yeah.
Okay.
And the silvery one is the zinc.
And so all that matters is that they're in contact then, right? And
Mhm.
this will function that way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I still so I get that core concept. What I struggle to grasp is like why is it that two different noble metals
Right.
touching have that
So
effect on each other?
yeah. So what happens is the graphite is the cathode. It's the permanent piece,
Hmm.
let's say. And the zinc is the anode. That's the piece that's going to be eventually degraded, eaten away. And it's going to give up electrons and it's going to create, and be corroded away, eaten away as it goes into this sink, this graphite sink. Um, and so that's what causes this galvanic charge to accumulate, is the fact that they are so far apart on the galvanic scale.
Okay, that
And
they, I guess, try to even
it's
out in a
it's
way by
losing
shedding ions.
electrons to the graphite that's basically sucking them up.
I gotcha.
Um,
Okay.
and
Thank you.
that's what causes the field. It's a battery. It's basically a little battery in seawater, and the seawater itself is the electrolyte that allows the charge to dissipate out.
And then you sent, or no, this is what the one wasn't the one you sent us, but this was a video we had on the newer version of the device.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at this here real quick. So we've got this cylinder that looks like the graphite, and then the zinc that'll slip onto the line via that little, I don't know what you would
Mhm.
call that loop there, and then the zinc sheath, if you will,
Yeah.
slides on over that. That's a pretty clever design, because obviously with
So
with commercial fishing, you're gonna have to be able to put this thing off and on pretty quick
yeah.
here. But one question that immediately comes to mind is if the very nature of this working requires it to corrode, so how much use is somebody going to get out of something like this before they have to replace it, do you think?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. And so I had my postdoc working on this. He was measuring the electric field over time to see how much it would degrade. And we had these zinc and graphite sitting in the tank for various periods of time, from, 1 day, 2 days, a week, a month, whatever, dragging it way out there. And the electric field is obviously
There's my dog,
strongest
sorry.
right at the beginning when both the samples are fresh, they're new, it's giving you the most bang for your buck at that point. Um,
So you're
but
going to
it
reach a
it
point of diminishing returns where it's still doing its thing, but probably not enough to
but
deter the
a
shark.
much lower level. The
Yeah.
nice thing is, even after an extended period, the graphite wasn't, I mean, excuse me, the zinc wasn't gone, but what it was coated with a lot of calcium carbonate, aragonite, basically the building block of a coral reef. And
Ah,
so this is a phenomenon that's been known for years. Uh, Calcium carbonate is basically stimulated, attracted to the electric fields. It stimulates, accumulation of this. And I don't know
huh.
that chemistry nearly as well, but they have used that to create weak electric fields to grow corals, and have corals take hold as they're trying to grow them up to, the little coral nurseries before they transplant the corals off into the reef. They've had those where they've tried to put little weak electric fields across there to stimulate the corals to grow. And so
Very
that
cool.
phenomenon has been well known. And we see that. We see that after what, a couple months or so, what is, like 60 days, I think it was, there's, accumulation of aragonite. But the cool thing is, what you can do is you can take this, you can acid bath it. Acid will remove the calcium
Back
carbonate.
down to the metal.
Um,
Okay.
and then you got down to the bare metal again, and rinse it off and stick it back on, and you're good to go again.
Yeah, so they'd have maybe
So
like a wash bin on the fishing boat, and just
mhm.
once they could you visibly see when this calcium carbonate starting to build up to a
Yeah,
point of being a problem?
yeah.
So then they would just
Hmm.
say, "Oh, okay, this one's getting dingy.
Oh,
Dump it in the
yeah.
bin with the
Stick it
other
in
ones."
here, acid bath it for 5 minutes, rinse it off, stick it back on again, and you should be good. So
Okay.
it's like a refresh. Now it
Yeah.
eventually will corrode away, but that's like a long-term exposure.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking electrons. We're not talking chunks that are being consumed at a time.
So realistically, if people are doing this right and they're keeping these things clean, do you think this is something that, like, if a fishing fleet bought one batch of these to go
Mhm.
on their, let's say, a long line, the is this something that realistically they could get through like a whole season without replacing them if they take good care of them, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
That's really
Um,
cool.
what? what would be cool, and this is something that we would want to do, is work closely with the commercial fishermen to say how much of a nuisance is this? How much are you willing to do? Um, to keep them fresh, basically, right? The way we've got it designed right now, if I can just, I don't know, can you see if this is it? Right, you've
Yeah.
got the little device
If you
here,
can lift it up
and
about
like,
center screen, we can see it pretty well.
yeah. So you got, like we said, the graphite core, which is this part,
That's
right?
amazing. It just looks like plastic from here.
Well, this is plastic. This
Oh,
is
okay.
just a
That's
3D
a
printed
demo.
model.
Okay.
This isn't the real thing yet. But the way we've got it done is let's see, the little zinc sheath, right? This is just a sheath of zinc, and with the slit on it, what you're able to do is just slide it right onto the line. You don't have to re-rig anything and just slide it into place. And now it's good to go. It's charged and it's going. And so when they do need to replace it, they just have to slide it off, take it off, stick it in the bucket, come back and stick it back on again, and you're good to go. So it's quick and easy to replace this. And so what I would suggest for the fishermen is have 2 or 3 sets of zincs, right? One is out there fishing. When you bring that line in, pop them off, put a new one on, and stick these used ones in the acid bath. And
That's
then you
pretty
come
clever.
back and rotate them out basically. So if you got 2 or 3 sets, you've always got a fresh set going on.
Is the graphite not prone to the same corrosion as the zinc?
No, no, the
Oh,
graphite's the cathode. So you can think of that
okay.
as the electrons sink. The
Mhm.
electrons want to go to the cathode, and it's not going to go away. It's not going to be degraded at all. It's the zinc that's going to be degraded, and the cathode is going to remain intact.
Oh, that's great. Less parts to replace, the more
Yeah,
appealing it is
yeah.
to the fishermen, and we definitely, want them to adopt it. And that
Mhm.
would make it very enticing. And it seems like like kind of a no-brainer of an argument, right? Like you want to catch
Yeah.
more of your target species, here you go. And as long as
Mhm.
that price point isn't too scary for them and they make up for that cost with the additional
Right.
target species being
Well,
caught, then it
yeah,
sells itself.
exactly. So, you think of it as you catch maybe, an extra, like, I don't know, 1,000 hook long line set, right? You catch an extra 3 fish and you've already broken even, in terms
Wow.
of the cost for these things. And so, for these guys who are out there on these long line boats, it's an expense to set it up the first time, but it really does pay for itself. And so, in terms of not only catching more of your target species and selling more of those, but also in terms of reducing the amount of handling time and reducing the amount of time dealing with these unwanted sharks on the line. You can imagine how much of a nuisance it is to have to deal with those
Yeah.
all the time. You got another shark, you got to deal with that, and it damages the gear. Then you have to take your time to, unhook it or release it or cut it off or whatever. And so, if even if you can reduce that frustration, um, it should make it happier for the fishermen.
Every now and then we'll go through like viral shark videos on social media here and just talk about them, talk about maybe how negative interactions could be avoided. And one of the ones that made the rounds, it's been a while since we watched it, but it was, you've probably seen it. It was a guy, I forget what kind of shark it was, maybe a copper shark, but it was just like gulping away at this tub of fish they'd caught on a long line boat, and he's trying to pull it away from the fish and throw it over this, the one, yeah. So
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't look like an easy task. I'm sure it could be a tall order to deal with that. So there's definitely that
Well,
appeal.
the big pointy teeth and the thrashing tails and the
Yeah.
whatever else, it's a danger. It's a hazard for the fishermen. They want to avoid that as much as possible as well.
So let's say you guys get this thing perfect. You've honed it down. You're happy with it. What is the next steps towards getting it widely adopted? Do you patent it and just start selling it, or like what does that look like? What happens next?
Yeah. So we have a patent pending already on this. And that's why I can talk about it, because
Okay.
prior to this, we had to keep quiet about everything until it was, submitted to the patent trademark office. Um, but yeah, the goal is to get these things manufactured at scale, drive the cost down, and start getting these out to the commercial longliners. I think that's going to be our first target. The longline fishermen who are out there, um, yeah, the Canadians, the Spanish fleet, South America, New Zealand, Asia, it's all over. It's not a Florida problem. It's not just a US problem. It's a worldwide problem, right? And so the goal is to get these things out. And I think the easiest way to do it would be to distribute through longline fishing suppliers. I mean, they have to buy hooks anyway, right? They're buying
Right.
hooks, they're buying the crimps, they're buying the mono. If we can, add these things into the mix, into the distributor's mix and say, hey, listen, while you're at it, while you're selling hooks and crimps and whatever, sell these things too. And that would be the easiest way to get it out and as broadly distributed as possible to as many boats as possible. I think even the first year, even if we sell the half a dozen boats, that'd be great. It starts the wedge, right? And if it's successful and other people say, hey, they're catching a lot more fish than I am, then it's going to keep growing and growing and growing. So that's sort of the goal. Start and just get it out there to as many people as we can. The influencers among the fishing community, let's say, and they'll be able to hopefully drive adoption on a broader scale.
Do you think, I mean, I know in a lot of scenarios, this sort of device wouldn't be great for recreational fishing, but do you think there would be recreational applications for this in some way?
There could, but I think the bigger problem with recreational fishing is depredation.
Yeah,
Guys are out there fishing and they're rolling up reeling up their snapper or whatever, and the shark comes along and nails it.
takes it after the
Um,
fact. Yeah.
and that's a big problem. This isn't the right product for that. We actually have something else that I can't talk about yet, um,
Ah,
that will be used for shark depredation. And so stay tuned. Give me a
that's
little while
exciting.
to get that farther along in the process. But I think that would be the way to go for recreational guys. This is probably not the solution for them, but there's something else that's cooking that I think will be more useful for them.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to hear about that because right now they've got different devices out there. And, like we talked earlier about,
Mhm.
I had watched the seminar that Dr. Ajimian did talking about a device. Some of the people in chat are familiar with there's a company called Shark Bands. They make these little wristbands. Sometimes surfers and some spear fishermen will wear them around their ankle as a shark deterrent. But they make a little tube. It's, I think, not that different in size from your device there.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
about twice as long, and theirs is very
oh, okay.
heavy because it's like a sinker, right?
Yeah, it's like a weight, and I think it's just a
It's
really
a
powerful
magnet.
magnet.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was interesting because it's something that, like, sure, the effectiveness of it is there, and like watching the videos of, like, the first time they tested it, they had a camera looking down the line at it, and sure enough, it worked exactly as they would hoped it would. They hung that thing behind the fish. The shark veered off as it was chasing the fish to the surface. So that's great. But then it's cost prohibitive. It's like $75. That's an expensive weight, Like, a lot of
Yeah,
people are going to look at
yeah.
that and go, "Yeah, no, no thanks. I'll take my chances." So that when I first heard about this research that you guys are doing for this galvanic device, immediately I'm like, "Okay, this is amazing." But then I hear, "Oh, they're patenting it." So there's the concern there that, like, okay, well, if this becomes too cost prohibitive, it may not
Mhm.
get adopted. But I mean, obviously, you want to sell the thing, so it's you still want them to be accessible enough that it's widely adopted, right?
Yeah, so the model I'm envisioning is more of a make up in volume rather than sell a few expensive ones. That doesn't help anyone.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
it's if you're going to save the sharks, you need as many of these things out there as possible. The more hooks that are protected, the fewer sharks that are going to get caught.
Yeah.
And that's really sort of the driver behind this. So if we can keep the price down so that it's widely adopted, more people are going to use them, you know, fewer sharks are going to get caught, and more fishermen are going to be happy. So that's sort of the model, rather than the more high end targeting the like the recreational guys like the Zeppelin would be doing. That's a different audience. That's a recreational fishing audience, and maybe they can afford it more than these commercial guys who are dropping 1,000 hooks at a time.
Fresh Meat 911 in the chat said, "What I'm really excited about is the open results from the actual fishermen." That's a good point. But speaking of results, do you want to talk about some of the testing you guys did for this? How did you
Yeah.
test it? It was 3 different areas, right?
So, mhm. So we worked with our colleagues up at Florida State University, and we did some testing with their regular shark sampling in the Gulf up there, by the Panhandle. And what they would do is they would set long lines out, and we would alternate. We'd have one with nothing on it, a bare hook,
Yeah,
one with a plastic control that looks the same, but it's just plastic, and then one with an actual zinc graphite deterrent. And then the next hook number 4 would be nothing, and then a plastic, and then so we just keep alternating those along
sure.
the whole set. And what we found is that these hooks that were treated with the zinc graphite um, had significantly fewer sharks on them than the control treatments. 63 to 70% fewer sharks. So
That's a big
that's a
number.
big reduction compared to a bare hook, or a hook with just a piece of plastic on it. So it worked really good for these sharks that you would, like black tips and um, tiger sharks, hammerheads, things like that that they were encountering there. So I thought, this is great. This is working really well. And so we said, well, let's do worst case scenario. Let's go and try and do it with little spiny dogfish, pike dogfish, up in Massachusetts, because they're thick on the ground. There's so many of them around, and they swarm by like the hundreds in these schools. And so if you can keep the dogfish off, you can keep anything off,
Just
basically.
because of their sheer
But
numbers.
they're just sheer numbers,
Mm.
And so we tried it, and sure enough, it didn't work. The dogfish didn't care. We caught. There's no significant difference in the catch between the bare hooks and the plastic hooks and
And
the
why
uh,
might that
the, the
be?
zinc
That's
graphite
interesting.
hooks. So, and I think really what it boils down to is they are competing with every other shark around them.
Mm.
And if I don't take that piece of food, I'm going to miss out, and the shark beside me is going to get it. And so it's very much a case of um, let's go for it. Let's get everything, even if it's uncomfortable. I'm going to try it. And so I think that was really the explanation for why the spiny dogfish, it just didn't work. They just swarm, and they hoover up the whole seafloor, basically.
So this
So I
may be
think
like
that
a
was,
species specific reaction based on
yeah.
their behavior. We actually talk a great deal on this channel about how different species of sharks behave dramatically different from others,
Mhm.
usually in reference to like diving and encountering them.
Right.
Um, but so
The
you're
the other
you're
factor to
thinking that
consider is that the spiny dogfish have half the number of electroreceptors
really,
compared to these other sharks. So
huh?
they have far fewer electroreceptive organs in the first place. And so that may contribute to them maybe not being quite as, the
Discerning,
electric
maybe.
sense might not be quite as important for them
Yeah.
as it is for the other species that for which this was so much more effective.
So there may be a biological reason as well as a behavioral when they're just more
Mhm.
prone to competitiveness because they're surrounded by a lot of their peers, I guess.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
That's interesting.
Exactly. And then we also went offshore. We did some pelagic longlining. We didn't have as big a sample size as we would have liked, just because when you're offshore, pelagic longlining, the catch rate is so much lower than when you're inshore with where all the sharks are. But what we did find is that we caught fewer sharks on the treated hooks. But what was interesting here was that And again, we can't do it statistically, but we were still catching just as many target species on these treated hooks. And
Okay.
so it doesn't look like it's going to detrimentally impact the catch of the target species. It would just keep the sharks away, and that's what you want, right? It's no
Right.
good if it scares everybody away. It has to just scare the sharks away.
Exactly.
And so that's where the results were leaning, but we can't say that definitively because the sample size wasn't quite big enough. So we're
Okay.
working on boosting that sample size, doing more of those sorts of trials to see if we can get something that we can say, yes, this
For
is
the open
a
pelagic
statistically
fisheries.
significant difference.
Hmm. So that's to come, the more pelagic
That's
longline
ongoing.
testing.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, I don't
Yep.
mean, speaking of
Hope,
animal behavior, I don't mean to alarm you, but it seems your cat has learned how to open doors.
yes, I'm glad she managed to get out. She
My
woke. I thought she would just nap here the whole time until she heard the garage door
my
open.
dog
So
just
she
figured out
goes.
how to maneuver our door handles, and he's only like a little 20-pound Chihuahua mix. So I'm in big trouble now. So this is all very fascinating. Was there any other information in this in about this topic in this uh, Fox Orlando video that we should
No,
look
it's
into real
really
quick?
just a summary of, what we've talked about. It's just this. That was just one of the interviews I did.
Okay.
Um, about this stuff, but it's largely the same material that we've already discussed. You and I have discussed this in much more detail. It's a lot of fun as opposed
Okay,
to just
great.
a brief little TV blurb, which is only 3 minutes or
Yeah,
something.
I
You and I
really
can really
appreciate
get
you coming
into
and
it.
talking about this stuff because I personally really geek out on this stuff, and just through you know listening to me yap about it, we seem to have attracted folks who find it interesting too. So
Yeah.
thankfully, we've got a community of people eager to learn about this stuff. Um, so you sent me over as well this cool to kind of pivot a little, a, a link to a YouTube segment of an episode of Nat Geo Shark Fest that you did, and I've cut to 11 minutes here. Do you want to preface what we're about to look at? This is right before that scene with the blood droplets.
So this was a program I hosted for Nat Geo a few years ago, and it was the first time that they had used people, like humans, but with computer generated sharks. And so the cool thing is what this program enabled us to do was talk about the biology of the animals and show how things worked, inside the animals, digital dissection, so to speak. And really sort of engage the public in a way that was, cool and appealing. So if you play just a little bit of this, um, you can see how the the computer graphics are integrated here.
All right, let's take a look.
So they've got, footage of the real animals, but then they cut to, us in the lab and pointing out the different parts, the different anatomy, and then saying, all right, this is what it looks like on a shark. If you were to pull it out, it looks like this. This is what the organ looks like. And doing these sorts of digital animations really enabled us to get a great visual to help people really understand what's going on. It's hard even if you're to do a dissection to show what's going on, but this way we could create these models and show this is what it was actually all about. So I really
What
enjoyed doing this program. It was
what
a
are we
lot of
looking at right
fun.
now? Are those the
And
nares?
yep, those were the olfactory organs inside the nose of the shark, inside the nares of the shark.
Oh,
And so
nares.
by
I've been
showing
saying it wrong all this time. I
it's
had a
fine, you
feeling
can
it was
say
one or the
nares if you
other.
want.
That's very cool. Let's see. Is there if we
There's a bunch of these different examples where we do these sorts of talk about the behavior and or the
Oh, that's not
the
ominous at all, just
anatomy of
having
the
it swimming
animal.
around the room while you're chatting.
Yeah.
This is fine. Just a great white.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun doing this, and I was able to bring my students and various colleagues and experts in different fields, and say, all right, this student worked on shark hearing. She knows a lot about how sharks hear, so let's bring her in to
Very
talk about
cool.
hearing. And it's a great exposure for a lot of these other people, these graduate students who might not otherwise get their work exposed on an international scale,
That's
on
awesome.
colorful
I can only
programs going
imagine
around
how
the world.
excited they must have been.
Yeah.
Is the is there have you been involved with any other stuff we might see that coming this summer?
This summer, no, I haven't done anything coming up for this summer, but there's I'm I'm actually going to be traveling all over the place this summer, so I'm not even going to be around. Um, but we typically do something every year, but this year, no, there's too much other stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a lot more work is needed on the projects you guys are currently working on as well.
Yeah.
That's so. Coming back to that, what is the potential benefit from this? Like, so if you said it was like 60-70% reduction in bycatch and some of the
Yeah.
testing, and so like,
Yeah.
what could that
So
mean globally? Because we hear about numbers
sure.
like 100 million sharks being killed every year, but I mean, I'm sure a large portion of that's poaching. I don't. It's hard to say how much of that is well, for me, I'm sure that I know the data's out there because I've seen it before, but for long lining. So, how many sharks, if this was adopted wildly, if it was an
Yeah.
easy case to make and every fisherman's like, we need this, anybody that can afford it's going to adopt it, what kind of numbers could we see in shark death prevention, you think?
Sure. So let's say you've got 50 million sharks that are killed annually just in longline fishing. All right. So that's a reasonable number based on, you know, reporting in the literature. So let's say you got 50 million, but let's say this thing's only half effective, right? It's only effective half the time. 50 million sharks caught on the line. You could cut that down to 25 million sharks on the line. You could save literally 25 million sharks, even if it's only halfway effective. And so, I mean, that's a big chunk. That's a significant number of individuals who don't end up dead. And that's why we're here. That's what we're all about, is to save the sharks and make the fishermen happy at the same time. So
I, for
if we
one, will
can
be
do that and get
celebrating
it
if we
widely
if we can
adopted,
say that there are tens of millions fewer sharks dying every year because
yeah,
of a tiny device that, for any reason, let alone because of a tiny device that you can just slip onto the line, that's a huge win. I mean,
yeah. And
yeah,
that's
I have
that's why
I
we're
have no
doing it,
words.
we're
That's it. It's just a huge win.
yeah. It's not a money making thing, so to speak. I mean, it has to be profitable. You can't,
Right.
there's costs involved, but to me, it's more of a moral issue. It's not a profit issue. It's the right thing to do. To help the animals and help the fishermen at the same time. These fishermen, they're working on the margins half the time, right? They're not breaking in a lot of profit. So if you can help them do better, everyone's happy.
Yeah, the pitch seems easy. Like if you could say, "Hey, what if I told you you'll catch less sharks and more of your target species
Mhm.
if you spend this amount on these little
Mhm.
devices?" That sounds like a shut up and take my money kind of
Yeah,
argument.
yeah.
I think for most. I mean, of course, I've never worked in that field, but on paper, to me, that seems like a no brainer.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why we were excited about this next phase where we're working directly with the commercial longliners, the commercial fishermen, the guys who would actually be adopting this, and going out on the boats with them, giving them the devices and saying, "Hey, listen, how does this work? What do we need to do different? What would it take for you to adopt something like this?"
Yeah, like what's
And getting
holding you
that
back? What
feedback.
would hold you back from it? What might be a
Yeah,
roadblock or something? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so that's sort of where we're starting this spring, um, over the next half a year or so until the end of the fishing season, I guess, in maybe December or so. We're going to be working a lot with uh, the commercial fishermen, the guys who are out there all the time, and getting these out there, getting these in their hands so they can try them and give us that feedback so we can make it better and make it something that they are willing to adopt and people will be willing to take it on a worldwide basis.
Very cool. So, I have kind of like a two-part question. Let's say that
Sure.
everything with the future plans for this thing goes as swimmingly as possible, knock on wood, and everything goes off without a hitch. How soon do you think you can see this reaching markets? And conversely, are there any like major roadblocks that maybe you're on the lookout for that uh, could be problematic for getting
Yeah.
this out there?
Yeah. We would like to get this out by the end of this year
Wow.
would be the ideal. That's what we're gunning for. Whether we're going to actually pull that off, well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
It's who knows. I think the biggest roadblock we have right now is manufacturing at scale. So to get these built right now, we have to have them. There's no mold or anything. You have to build each one.
Hmm.
And that's where the cost is high because it's this bespoke manufacturing of each unit. And so the per unit cost is very high. But once we get to a point where we have a mold and we can fabricate in-house, and that drives the cost down from, a couple dollars a piece to a couple, to pennies a piece, right? It takes it down, 100x. And suddenly once you've done that, then it becomes much easier to mass produce, get out there in huge numbers, and really saturate the market, so to speak. Get as many people using them as possible. You're going to make up revenue in volume rather than selling a few high value ones. Sell a bunch of them at a lower price, and that's going to be a better deal for the fishermen who may not be able to afford an expensive unit, but they can afford a cheap unit. Great. Get them out there because the more of these out in the water, the more of these that are out in the water, the more sharks that are saved.
So it sounds like maybe an issue of getting an engineer to help find a way to mass
Yeah.
produce these things and get that production cost down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We had a question from the chat here. Freshie was asking, I may have missed it, but what is the life expectancy of this device? So we're basically kind of touched on that a little bit, Freshie.
Yeah.
Where I just asked if you think one of these could last, say, like a season for a fishing
Yeah.
fleet. And his answer was yes. But do you have an idea of theoretically if this was being used, say, every day, how long they might get use of this device before they have to replace one of these sheaths?
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't have a number on that right now. The longest we've done is done a 60-day soak. Um, and we're able to clean those up with an acid bath. And so
So you have yet to have one
these
that's like unusable. It just needs to be cleaned up with an acid bath, and then it's good to go
yeah,
again.
and it's good to go again, basically. Yeah. I mean, it will eventually pit and
Yeah,
corrode. But that's not I mean, I think you can go a whole year with these things before you're going to get to the point where you need to physically replace the zinc on it.
that sounds amazing. A year is
Yeah. Yeah.
for something that's two relatively cheap metals.
Right.
A year
Right.
is great.
Yeah.
That sounds
Yeah.
ideal.
Hmm. I
Um,
mean, well, that's the appeal, right? You want it as easy to use for the fishermen as possible
right.
and as economical for them, right? I mean, I'm all in favor of selling at a reasonable price to get more of them out there. So that's I guess the business plan.
Yeah, and I was having a brief discussion with a paleontologist streamer. Is paleontologizing is his name here. He he mentioned a good point. That, like with us phasing out the penny, that's a lot of zinc that may not be used. So maybe the cost of that'll be coming down as well. So that might work in your favor. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, So I don't know how you're feeling on like how much time we've got here. It's
Well, we've been at it for about an hour now. I
yeah.
don't know how you're feeling. My little boy just got back from karate, so that was should go chat with him and see how he did tonight. But
Yeah.
I can hang
No.
for about another five or so if that's all right with
Yeah,
you,
we
and
can
then
cut you loose. That's no big deal. I do have a question for you though. So I recently I had an interview last week with David Diley. He's a videographer, and him and Carly Jackson. We had a kind of a novel discussion that I think I kind of want to keep this going. Every now and then I'll get ideas for lyrics to like heavy metal songs about shark hunting behaviors, like written in the shark's perspective. I've got one on Spotify so far that's about great white sharks breaching. It's called Great White Death Flight. And I'm working on one about hammerheads called Bring the Hammer Down, and one about bull sharks called Bump and Bite. That's about how they don't rely on vision to find food. Uh, Carly suggested a hilarious one about nurse sharks and how they seem to just be so chill and they're dead weight when you're pulling them up to the boat, but then once you get them in the boat, they're just outrageously violent. And if I was to ask you, what is there a shark or a particular like a species or a behavior of a certain species that you think would make a good like angry heavy metal song? What would you suggest? And I'll
oh
see if I can
man,
actually make that happen.
I I I I'm gonna tell you this. I don't know about heavy metal songs, but when we just did my shark biology class last semester in the fall, on the last night I had karaoke night. And the students, we all had to make a song about elasmobranchs, sharks or rays or something.
Okay.
And we all had to sing. And so the lyrics were up there and you could sing your song. And so I did one I called the old Christmas song, Oh Christmas Tree, Oh Christmas Tree.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did Oh Sphere-in-a-Day, Oh Sphere-in-a-Day. And I wrote like five verses to this song. And so that's, I love the idea. I can't think, I don't know heavy metal very much.
Well,
It's not
really, it would
my
just be a question of like,
jam.
is there a species that has a unique behavior that you think is really just brutal? That would make good lyrics for one of
Mm,
my songs.
mm.
I think in a lot
Well,
of in a lot of ways, sharks kind of they write themselves for those types of lyrics. You know.
I like the hammerheads. One of the lyrics or one of the um, descriptions is them hunting stingrays. Well, they will go out and batter the stingray down to the ground, pin it there, bite off its wings, and eat it. And that is just a crazy behavior in the first place. And I think that would be a great uh, uh, fast-paced, violent, bang your stingray to the ground sort of
There you go. I'm
lyric
already
with your
working
big
on it. I've
giant
got the
head.
lyrics, just not the guitar. It's called "Bring the Hammer Down." All right. Well,
So,
with that note, if we can go ahead and cut you loose. If there's anything else you want to promote, please, the floor is yours. Be my guest, or maybe if you don't have anything you're working on, you want to promote, you could mention a nonprofit, and we'll go take a look at them or something, anything like that at all.
mhm. you know, um, Nothing really to promote, so to speak, but I'm just happy that people are interested and that you've got such a great following with people who want to engage with the shark community. There's lots of groups out there doing great stuff. So by all means, reach out to any of them. They'll be happy to jump on and talk with you. I had a great time. So
Oh, I'm glad you
um,
enjoyed it, and thank you again so much for making the time to do this. It's an absolute honor, and the work you're doing is so cool. I really hope it just I hope you guys knock it out of the park. This is going to be
yeah,
like we will definitely be celebrating here if this makes it when this makes it,
yeah,
to full adoption in fishing fleets.
very good. Well, thanks so much. I'd love to chat with you again sometimes. Let's do it next year. We'll have
All
something new to
right,
tell
sounds
you.
good. Yeah, we'll follow up on how it's going.
All right.
All
Thanks
right,
so
have a great
much.
night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.